All right, so good afternoon. Welcome to our From Lived Experiences to Leaders live video chat with our special guest, Dr. Patrice Palmer from the Franklin County Office of Justice Policy and Programs. We are just thrilled to have you with us today. Just a brief introduction of Dr. Palmer, and then we'll get right into our session. So Patrice is a leader on the front lines as a criminal justice reform advocate, reentry consultant, and an agent of change. Her work extends to the local, state, and national levels. She's spoken with the congressional staff in Washington, D.C. on behalf of reentry, criminal justice reform, and the Second Chance Act. Dr. Palmer, oops, sorry. Dr. Palmer is dedicated and compassionate for the work of restoring citizens after a period of incarceration. And her work has been recognized through the induction into the Hall of Fame at the Ohio State University College of Social Work in 2019. She has received a full governor pardon in 2018. She was a President Barack Obama Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award winner in 2016 and the Jerry Revish Restored Citizen of the Year Award winner in 2016. Like I said, I don't even think I'm worthy to be talking to this woman. So she has been an active force for several legislative bills in both the House of Representatives and the state Senate. So she puts her feet and her heart and her hands where she is. And she has testified on behalf of bills that have improved reentry and the reintegration process. She is also a co-founder of Chosen for Change, a nonprofit organization that addresses criminal justice reform, criminal justice challenges, barriers, and issues, as well as empowers directly impacted individuals and their families to raise their voices for systemic change. And I love that. That's why we titled this From Lived Experiences to Leaders, because we're trying to bring out those stories. Dr. Palmer presents work for she presently works for the for the Office of Justice Policy and Programs, which is a Department of Homeland Security and Justice program. And she works as a reentry social support specialist and is developer and lead facilitator for Pathways for Women's Healthy Living program in the Franklin County Correctional Center. She's an out-of-the-box thinker and from her personal experiences, she is an audacious advocate. And I just love that. And I would just say as well that she is also a licensed social worker, prevention specialist, and a community advocate for social change. And I could go on and on and on, but let me just say that I don't think you will meet a person that is more passionate about their community and the people in their community than Dr. Patrice Palmer, who resides in Columbus, if you don't know where Franklin County is, because I think we have some people that are not from our state on the call today. So with all of that, I just want to start you out, Dr. Palmer, with your own quote, repeating something in your own words. And you like to say, this is what I got from your bios, what you like to say is, if we restore the value, dignity, and worth of a person, we return a more productive citizen back into society. And I know you believe that wholeheartedly. So absolutely. So let's just start with, what's some of the rest of the story? If you could just take us to maybe just kind of your journey to where you are, to where you are using your voice to impact others and to help lead others in a journey that you went through.
Okay. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to present to this lived experience to leadership. So really, I am honored. And then to God be the glory for all of his grace and mercy, because if it had not been for his grace and mercy, I wouldn't be here or where I am in this space. So I always want to acknowledge my higher power and his leadership in my life in order to be able to do the work that I do, right? So I wanted to start out really quickly and ask everybody to just close your eyes for a few moments. Just in the space that you are in, just close your eyes for a moment. Notice the darkness, the silence, the uncertainty, and maybe even the fear of what's next. The challenge of what's next. That is the world and the life of people that are incarcerated, of people that are returning home, of people living in addiction, domestic violence and abuse, homelessness, is that type of environment and atmosphere. My mandate from God is to shed light and to give them another path that they can walk on, which leads to true transformation. So go ahead and open your eyes. What did that feel like for some of you guys? Can they unmute themselves, Reba?
They
So
may,
just a
yes.
few people just comment real quick for me. What did that feel like for you?
Isolating.
Thank you, Kim. Somebody else, what did that feel like to you?
Hopeless.
Hopeless. Thank you, Stanley. Anybody else?
I'm going to say reminiscent, because your words also spoke of redemption and revitalization to me, because be the light.
All right. I like that, Michelle.
God is in this, sister.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Formerly incarcerated. I know how it felt to be frightened and in the dark and scared, and I'm not anymore, praise the Lord. So,
all right.
Reminiscent.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Michelle. Anybody else?
I think the feeling of bracing yourself for what might be next, that sense of uncertainty, but feeling as if you have to be physically tightened in order to potentially protect yourself from what might be coming at you.
Thank you for that, Annette. That's great insight. Reba, Ronnie Burke, Deputy Burke, just texted me and said they're trying to get in and aren't able to get in.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Okay. So thank you for just giving that insight. So one of the things I like to do is, how do people feel, and how can you, in the moment, connect them to this work of reentry, the work that I do from my lived experience, and being able to look at that darkness and that time in my life that was unproductive to what got me to where I am today. Does that make sense? Yes. So I come from a lifestyle, if you will, of just destruction, total destruction, drug addiction, criminal justice involvement. I always say Bonnie and Clyde all by myself, right? Because you guys know who Bonnie and Clyde were, right? Outlaws, right? I didn't grow up, my family was, I didn't grow up like that. My family, I had, both parents in the home, hard workers, Christians, and their engagement with us as children. I'm the youngest of three. They were very good parents, and they done the best they could do. For some obscure reason, I lost track, right? I got off track. I went to private schools, I went to Catholic schools, but yet I found my way down this path of destruction. And I like to say that I went to the enemy's camp so I can learn firsthand what the dynamics are that people are going through so that I can be valuable in God's kingdom in order to break those cycles for other people along the way, right? So I spent over 20 years of my life funneling in and out of the criminal justice system, drug addicted, homeless, domestic violence, and just lawless in my lifestyle. And I chose those things after giving my life to the Lord, and I walked away from God and became all of those things I just mentioned, right? So I'm not proud of this, but I have 4 prison numbers, none of which I'm proud of. I'm not that one and done person, you know, okay, one time I got in trouble, went away and I got it, and then I came back and I changed my ways. I have 4 prison numbers, again, none of which I'm proud of. But I found my life spiraling out of control on the edge. I mean, I lived on the edge, and I loved the charge of it, the excitement of a life of crime. You know, going in the stores and stealing or writing checks and being caught up in this cycle was fascinating to me when I got away. But when I got caught, I sat there dumbfounded, like, what happened? How am I here? And then how did I find myself in this situation again? One of the things I like to share with people is that, you know, according to the Bible, it says that all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord, who are the called according to his purpose, right? So, all of these things that I'm going through and been through in my life after knowing God, how is all of this going to work together for my good and to his glory, right? So you have to understand that I had to get to a place in my life where I had to cry out to God and say to him, help. You know, I had to cry out and ask God to help me understand who I am in you, and help me to see myself as you see me. Because right now I'm jacked up, I'm lost, right? And so it was in 2003, my 4th prison term, that I had this aha moment, if you will, this epiphany in my life. And it was my brother visiting me, not bringing my children. I was devastated. I thought, you know, he's getting ready to tell me something that happened to one of my children. But his words to me was, we can't do this anymore. Like, we can't continue to go through this process with you in and out of jail, right? Constantly running around on drugs in the streets, all of this dysfunction. We cannot keep doing this. And I thought, you can't keep doing it. I'm the one in the prison cell. I'm the one doing the time. I can't keep doing this. And he said to me, you got to make another choice. You got to make another decision. Excuse me, because for me, for him and my family, it was the fact that my children, who were small at the time, had a hard time dealing with coming to prison, seeing their mother, or me not there at a football game, or me not there, you know, with them growing up at birthday parties and things like that. And for the life of me, I never really thought about what it looked like to them. And it was in that moment in 2003, sitting in the visit hall in a prison, that I had that aha moment that this is not okay for my children. This is not okay that my children love and adore me, and they come to see me. They're excited to get there, but when they leave, they're tore up. When they leave, they're emotionally distraught. When they leave, they're shattered. And I was causing that by my choices. Whew. For me, in that moment was my breakthrough. And in that moment was my surrender, if you will, to a power greater than myself, and that power being God. And I said to him, I cried out and said, help. You know, I didn't say it really low. I screamed to the loudest that I could and asked God, help me. Woo! Because if you don't help me, I'm going to self-destruct. I'm going to destroy everything in my path. Because that's what we do when we're in active addiction and involved in this criminal justice system. So it was in that moment in 2003 that God heard my cry. And I began on this path of redemption, of restoration, because true restoration can only come from God, right? And so it was in 2003 that I started this path of redemption and this path of restoration and this path of revitalizing myself, recommitting myself back to God, and making conscious decisions of my choices because I was no longer willing to hurt those who love me. And that was my children and my family. And so that's how it all began. Did I answer your question, Reba?
Ooh, more. I think he pretty much wiped out all my questions at that. So what I heard you say in your story, and just kind of focusing on leadership, was had to submit to a higher power, right?
Yeah.
Surrender and submit to a higher power. Ask for help. Can't do it alone. Have to choose differently. And have to recognize that in leading yourself, you're leading others.
Absolutely.
Children.
Absolutely. And I had to take responsibility.
Yes,
for my
take
choices,
responsibility.
right?
Yep.
I couldn't blame the system. They're sending me back, or it's the judge's fault. I couldn't blame society. It was my choices. And so taking that responsibility and saying, you know what, I got myself in this mess, but I know that I can look to God, my higher power, to help guide me out of this. And then God wrapped a village of people around me to help support me to make better choices and decisions. Some of them held me accountable to a place I didn't want them to, and they got on my last nerves, like my drug counselor. I didn't like her, and she said, God told me not to allow you to slip through the cracks, and she got on my nerves. But she said to me, if you listen to me and follow these instructions, you'll never repeat this process again. And to this day, she is still in my life and a support for me today. But I didn't like her because I could manipulate my way out of anything. But she wouldn't let me go. She would not, every little thing I tried to slip through or little cracks, she was right there and called me out on it. But that level of accountability built my character. It built my integrity. And I appreciate her to this day.
That reminds me of a quote from Andy Stanley. He's a pastor down in Atlanta. He says, leadership is a stewardship. It's temporary and you're accountable.
That's good.
I heard that in what you were just saying. So my first question is in talking about leadership, and we've already started that, is in one or two sentences, define for our group, what is leadership? What in Patrice Palmer's language, what is leadership?
So from my perspective, leadership is about influence. It's about it's about responsibility. It's about motivating and inspiring others. It's about trust and confidence and communication. And then you know that you are influencing people, and the one way that you know that is that you watch the choices, or you observe the choices that other people around you are making. So leadership is a responsibility. It's not a title or a position. It's a responsibility.
Yeah.
And I always think of the Bible where much is given, much is required. So, God doesn't give us when he gives us something, he requires something of us, and that's integrity.
So in your own experience, when you were within it, and you've talked a little bit about that, was it that pivotal moment of recognizing what your behavior was doing to your children that you started to see yourself as a leader? You started to see that influence?
I honestly think I've always been a leader. I just didn't embrace what leadership was. I mean, even as a child, in school, and playing games on the playground, and somebody had to make the rules or whatever. I've always had the inclination to lead, just never wanted the responsibility of true leadership. I didn't want If something went wrong, I didn't want to have to be the one to own the mess. But that's a part of leadership. So
It
I
is.
think that I've always recognized it, but whether or not I embraced it, or um, General Colin Powell says perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. So you got
Mm,
to know that who I am and what I'm designed to be. I have not only leadership skills and qualities, but I have to own it. I have to embrace it. I can't run from it and hide from it. I have to embrace it. So
hmm Steward it.
absolutely.
Steward it well, right? Because like you said, um, we can have bad leadership, right? that lead to bad outcomes, but you're a leader regardless, right? If people are
Hmm.
willing to follow you,
Hmm. Hmm.
whether it's a good path or a bad path. And
Hmm.
so how we steward that and steward that well for, for the glory of God and to be that light, is critically important. So as a leader and people, you have people that follow you from all different areas of life and community. What are some of the characteristics that you look for when you're deciding who you're going to invest your leadership journey in and bring along with you?
So I'm very prayerful when it comes to engagement with people, right? Because people are a resource, and so I'm very prayerful with people I engage with, or I interact with, and I really don't think that I choose who it is. I believe God chooses for me whose path I am to cross, and
Mm,
so I don't take it lightly. It's a great responsibility, and I'm cautious um, as I engage with people, as I invest in people, because I believe a great leader, because there's a difference between a bad leader, a good leader, and then a great leader, right?
mm,
So great leaders invest in other people, right? And then they produce more great leaders. And
mm,
so characteristics that I look for in people is as are they trustworthy, their integrity, their reputation in the community in which you serve. Are they a person of honor? Is their word? Do they honor their word? I look at communication, self awareness, empathy, and then what is the intention on the person that I'm engaging with? What's their intention? Because some people have hidden motives of why they do what
mm,
they do or what they're going to do or whatever. So I always look at what's their intentions, and what is the outcome? What are you looking to gain out of this? And from my perspective, I think communication is like critical in leadership.
mhm, mhm. So intentions, right? What are the intentions that signal to you, hey, yeah, this is a person that I'm going to yoke with,
Mhm.
so to speak?
Um, a person that say for the work that I do, like with reentry, what is their motive in being a part of the work? Because
Okay.
a lot of people do great work behind the scenes and have never been recognized for any of it, but they continue to do the work because it's the call on their life, right?
Mhm,
Or it's
mhm,
their passion. Um, are people? Do they have the tenacity to hold on and to hang in there
mm.
even when the road gets rough? Because sometimes this work gets rough, right? Whew, not sometimes, a lot of times. But do they have the capacity and the tenacity to hold on to that? And then
Yeah.
I kind of look at what work are they doing? uh, are they willing to jump in wherever help is needed, or no, they only want to do what's out front? Are they willing to go serve people at a food pantry, at a homeless shelter? Are they willing to do some of the work that's not so glamorous?
Mhm,
What
mhm,
level are you willing to serve? To me, leadership is about being a servant. And so
mhm.
servants serve, right? I
Yeah.
feel like a butler sometimes, right? But that's a part of the
Mhm.
leadership characteristics.
Yeah. How do you, so pivoting to people that you're working with that are coming out of addiction, that are kind of just starting their journey, that are just coming home, you know, society has told them that their word is no good, that they're bad, that, you know, there's no integrity, and all of those things. How do you speak to them and help them to see within themselves first those characteristics of leadership that maybe have been applied wrongly in the past? But how do you help them to see that they do have those characteristics of leadership? They've just been buried for whatever reason that is, right? And how do you help reveal that? I think of revealing that to folks, that self-awareness piece.
So one of the things, and I refer to this, it doesn't matter if people have a clear understanding of God or not, but that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, number one. And that whom the Son has in his hand, can't no man pluck him out. And that for whatever reasons you may see yourself in a derogatory way or unproductive way, you have to own that, right?
Oh,
But then
wow.
you have to begin to see yourself through a different lens. And you
Okay.
got to give people a different lens to view themselves from. So I talk to them and ask them, what's their life like? What happened to you? And not say, how did, what is all of this? How did you get here? I engage them in conversation and develop a relationship out of trust, right? So that they can see they're not alone. A lot of times people feel like they're alone or nobody understands them. So when you can get people to see that they're not alone, but that there is something uniquely wonderful about them, like there's no other you. Nobody else has your fingerprint. And so you're fearfully, wonderfully made by God. So I always try to tap into a person's what do they like in life? What's their hobbies? Let's go back to childhood. Let's find something that can connect you to positivity so that you know that there's something good in you that we can pull out, right? I am not my failures or my poor choices. I'm just not them, right? And then I always say to people that I do not allow my past fears or failures or poor choices dictate my future possibilities. So where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself in 7 days and 14 days, 30 days, 2 weeks, 6 months, and not get this big broad picture, but I keep it really narrow for them so that we can start building on something. And I call them milestones. Because when people have been incarcerated, when they've been on drugs, if they've been in abusive relationships, homeless, all of those things, we have a poor view of ourselves. We have a poor perception of who I am. So to remove that and get them to start seeing themselves as God sees them, I think is one of the key approaches when you're dealing with people.
Yeah. How powerful is it, thinking of what you said about taking them kind of back to their childhood when they were not as marked or scarred perhaps by the world, right? How um, do you find that a lot of times that is an effective strategy for people to really to start that journey of self-awareness, of connecting back into being, you know, fearfully and wonderfully made, as a person, that some of it's really rooted in that connecting back to that childhood that was perhaps of a more innocent time, and you know what they liked to do and what their dreams were at that point. um, that's just a question.
I just think in that kind of moment, I think number one, you have to be very prayerful, right? And God will instruct you on how to handle people, right? Because everyone's childhood wasn't great, right? Even my own self, I had some issues and challenges in childhood that affected my life all the way up through adulthood, right? And to go back to that may be devastating for me. So when I take them back to childhood, to a delightful, memorable time in your childhood, there had to be one, right? There may have been a lot of destruction anywhere in your life, but there had to be something in your childhood that was beautiful. Let's start there. And when you can change the direction of the conversation people will start opening up and they'll see bright. To me, we have to lead people to hope. We have to inspire people, especially when you've been incarcerated and all of the dynamics that go along with that, the psychological and emotional impact of incarceration, as well as reentry, right? We often don't think about that psychological emotional impact when you come home, but it's there, right? And so we have to understand that in handling people, somebody's life is hanging in the balance here. I can't do the work alone. I have to depend on the power of God in my life to be able to speak to something that is broken in other people. I can't depend on Patrice Palmer to be able to look at Reba and be able to help Reba without the power of God in my life standing up in me, being who he is. And so for me, that's how I work. It's not, I don't beat people over the head with a Bible. I don't need to. I just allow the Spirit of God in me to connect to the Spirit of God in other people. They may not realize how powerful it is until you make that connection for them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. And so you've mentioned several times prayer, I think, is probably one of your anchors in your leadership, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
What are some of the other spiritual practices that you have found helpful in connecting, and letting God lead you in your
Mhm.
work?
So I have, I read the Bible. I read scriptures every day. One of my favorites, 2 Timothy 4:17. But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me. I understand that in myself there is no good thing, and I have no strength. But through him, the Bible says in Philippians, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So that's the strength that I rely on. And I realize that when Patrice does things, it's a different result than when the God in Patrice does it, I get a different result. So I know to rely on him because that's who I live, I move, and I have my being, and that's how I do. And then I also have prayer partners, people that cover me in the work that I do, because we need that in this work. And I have people that are mentors to me. Dr. D's at Cincinnati, when I was fresh in my journey, covered me in prayer. I could go in her office. I could just sit there and cry if I needed to. So God places people in your life like that. Annette Dominguez, and when I was in ORW, I could unleash how I really felt. And so coming home, I have a village of people around me. Dr. Crystal Bazar was a mentor and a social worker that poured into me. They didn't take away from me. They constantly poured into me. And I think for me, one of my faith is my foundation. I'm not going to move any other way. That I cannot waver. That is my foundation. My faith is my foundation, period. And when you realize that, Jesus said, upon this rock, I build my church, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. We are that church. And so we have to recognize that and allow that power of God to go through us and live and move and be through us as we operate in communities, in the prison, or with reentry, or in the lives that we serve.
Wow. It's portable, right? Faith is
Yes,
it moves with people, right? That's
it
how we
does.
make faith
Absolutely.
portable, is through people. When you're working with folks that are, particularly, I'm going to just focus on your reentry.
Mhm.
What are 3 strategies you use in developing, for lack of a better way of saying it, developing leaders through that reentry journey?
So I use a lot of different strategies. And I think one of the strategies I think is most valuable is that I meet people where they are, right? And I don't assume that I know what they want in their life. And so you incorporate, their thoughts of their future and their lives and where they want to go. And then I look at another strategy I use is how people solve problems, how they handle conflict, So that's another strategy I use. And then um, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always in school, it seems like. Dr. Dees knows that. I'm always in school. I'm always learning, right? Because the Bible says that, if we lack wisdom, we need to ask God, right? But knowledge is power. And then we have to understand, how do I gain the knowledge? I have to educate myself. I have to do the research. I have to be aware. So those are some of the strategies that I use. We can't be, if I won't know if I'm not informed, right? And so we have to be willing to be informed. And then once you know better, you do better, right?
And prior to this conversation here, you and I had a brief few minutes to talk the other day after you had a great vacation, which I think is also a leadership thing that we all need to be aware of, is that self-care, being able to step away from the work, right? Because it is a heavy, it's a heavy emotional work. It's a heavy spiritual work. And so we've got to spend that time away as well, just like Jesus went away to pray and all those things. But in our conversation previously, you talked about just getting ready to graduate. So tell us a little bit about what you've been learning about leadership through your most recent educational endeavor.
Whew. So my most recent is the NACO, the National Association of County Employees High Performance Leadership Training. And it's a 12-week long training. I recommend it to anybody. One of our instructors is General Colin Powell, and he gives you lessons about life and about leadership, about learning the enemy. He teaches us strategies of war, right? And he would say, like, one example would be, he has these 13 rules that is on his desk, and he lives by those rules. And one of them is, a great leader understands that they bring the weather. And so I was like, what does that mean? So he said, we have the ability, no matter what's going on in our lives, to step into the room and influence that space. And we got to own that. Another one is that it can be done. No matter what needs to be done, a great leader's mindset is it can be done. Another one of the rules was, to be kind, being kind to yourself and to other people. So one of the lessons or strategies, if you will, that we learned through this program, and we graduate tomorrow actually, was the mindset of a leader. Like, you cannot be a leader and doubt the work that you're doing or the team that you lead. You have to have full confidence, even if half the team is just a hot mess, because sometimes they don't click, right? You still have to have the ability to resonate for them that you are confident in this team. And then you own the direction that your team is going in. You have vision, you have purpose, and then you help motivate and inspire each team member. And those that may be the weakest link to that team, pull them up and empower them, and then watch that ignite your entire team. So it's been an amazing 12 weeks. There's people from all over the country in my class, and then to hear their different insights. We talk a lot about communication, active listening, feedback as a gift. How many people on here would be honest about, I don't want nobody's feedback? No. So I learned how powerful feedback is as a gift, right? And you don't agree or disagree, you just say thank you, and you take it and, apply what you need to apply, but you move on. So it has been, really phenomenal to have this type of training at a national level, where it just empowered my life, period. Marshall Goldstein is one of the instructors as well. And he said, I have these questions I write down, and every day I have somebody that calls me every day and asks me these questions, and they're, open-ended questions. Did I do my best to be grateful today? Did I was I kind today? Did I do my best to empower my team? And so I've done that. I started doing that. And I have an assistant with my nonprofit, and she calls me every day in the evening and asks me these questions. And I just answer yes or no. But it made me more aware of what I am doing and what I'm reflecting to my team. And so that was powerful. And then the fact that these instructors at the NACO level, high performance, are national leaders of Fortune 500 companies across the world. And so to be able to get insight from them, little golden nuggets from them on leadership. Leadership is about influence. It's about people, and people are resources, and really learning that it's not a position, but it's a responsibility. And then taking that responsibility, owning stuff when you messed up, you messed up. Own that and show your team that it's not just myself and I, my way, your way, the highway, but as a team. And then including them, and not only looking up to higher echelons of power, but being able to look right, um, shared level, if you will, with your team. So it's been really powerful, but I recommend it to anyone, because it really will help people define what leadership really looks like for them, and to be able to start moving toward a more productive leadership role.
Yeah. And so what's the acronym again? What does it stand for?
NACO, it's NACO, so it's a National Association of County Government. So
Okay.
it's teaching you how to be a leader in government entities.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I had county commissioners, I had directors and deputy directors of agencies all in our class together. And so it
Okay.
was really good. We made a leadership oath, and a leader should live by their oath, and your oath should be more action of what you are doing. So it was very powerful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
sounds phenomenal.
it
And so I
is. It
can't
is
wait.
amazing.
It's just going to woo. And that's interesting that you said how, you have your assistant, you talk to your assistant every day, and it's just, a couple simple questions. I was just on a leadership session with Carrie Newhoff, who's a pastor out of Toronto, and he was talking about burnout. And he went through burnout and has come back from it. And he said one of the practices he has now to avoid going back into burnout is he has a friend in Georgia who they text every morning, good thing, bad thing, what to pray for, and then they're reading, through Psalms. So then a thing out of Psalms, but just those little check-ins of what's been good, what's been bad. And he said it's just such a relief. He called it a relief valve. Right.
Absolutely. And I
So,
think you got to recognize, you know, if I have too much on me, I'm really not doing any good to anybody else. So self-care is like a pet peeve of mine, with my team, with my family. Self-care is so important. And sometimes I just want to get the work done. I just want to be engaged. I just want to do the work. But if I'm not stepping back and taking care of myself, I'm really not doing anyone any good. And as you referred to earlier, Jesus stepped away, because the crowd was always after him, and they always wanted from him. And he had to step away to revive himself. And we have to do that as well.
yes, we do. Yep, absolutely. Um, so just a couple other questions, and then I'm going to open it up. What makes for in your work? Have you been able to discover some, not necessarily magic bullets, but just some things that you try and work into everything you do that promote resiliency, right? Because when we think about reentry, there's just all these things. People are just knocking up against stuff, just getting knocked down, all the time. What, how do you embed, I guess, or how do you create that relationship of resilience with folks?
Um, Number one is gratitude. I'm grateful. And when people can be grateful, I may not have, the best house or car or relationship, whatever, but I'm grateful for something, and find that gratitude in that day, in that moment. Um, you have to have a relationship with God. And what I tell people is, I'm not saying, you got to fall out on the floor, carry a Bible, and know 5,000 scriptures, but you got to have a relationship with Him. And He's so sovereign that He understands the language of our tears. Like, that is so powerful to me. Like, what? I don't even have to say anything. I just cry. And He understands that. And I tell people, even in the jail cell, even out here on the street, walking up and down the street, or in drug addiction, it does not matter. God can reach you. And getting people to see that and to understand He doesn't see us as we see us. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways. And so helping people to understand that they can build a relationship with God, in a jail cell, just coming home, have messed up 1,000 times. You can build a relationship with God. You can go to God just like you are. God, I repent for the wrong that I've done, because I've done it against you. And I think of David in Psalm 51, against you and you only have I sinned. Create in me a clean heart, oh God, and renew a right spirit within me. Why did he do that? Because he knew he kept making mistakes over and over and over again. But he also knew that God's love for him didn't change, right? The Bible says nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. Nothing, And so helping people to see that and to understand that, and then understanding the bigger picture is that I have a mandate from God to lead people to the kingdom of God. And it's through our love. Love is one of the most powerful tools that we have, along with forgiveness, and not holding on to animosity or hatred or any of those things, but letting go, but knowing that my job is to lead people through Christ. And some people, the only Christ they're going to see is through us. And so using the tool of love, Corinthians says, love is not puffed up. It's not selfish. It's not, it doesn't hold account that I done this for you, I done that for you. Love is kind, it's gentle, right? And so applying the love of Christ, that's how we win people to Christ, is by showing the love. That's what's wrong with our world today. We don't have enough of the love of Christ operating in this work. And I think a lot of people that are doing prison ministry and reentry ministries, they operate out of the love of Christ. And that's what continues to break the barriers and the challenges in people's life and lead them to a power greater than themselves.
Yeah. Love covers a multitude of sins.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So our good friend, Dr. Mike Davis, often says that people come to this work to do well, and they stay because they're doing well, right? So we come as people who want to bring love and hope and stuff, and then we find success in that, or we find that people are coming to Christ, and then we stay, and then we kind of just entrench in our way of doing it, right? So what's some advice you can give folks who to keep I guess to keep moving toward that future, right? To that future forward mentality, to where we know that we're always in that space of doing well by stewarding our relationships well and those kind of things, so that we don't, our egos, I guess, don't get in the way of our work.
I think number one is again, be prayerful. Number two, know that somebody's life is hanging in the balance, and you have an opportunity. To me, every opportunity is a teachable moment. And ask yourself the question: when that person leaves you, did they leave you better than when they encountered you, when they first came to you? Sometimes they won't, but then they may call you a couple weeks down the road, or months or years, and say, you know what, I remember you said X, Y, and Z to me. Maya Angelou has a quote: people forget what you say, they forget what you do, but they never forget how you make them feel. And so, you know, my only advice would be authentic, be real. Um, you know, share your pain. Um, if it helps somebody else break through theirs. Um, and recognize that you're a servant. We are serving people, and we're doing it to the place that we say to God, "Here I am. Here, you know, use me, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do what you've given me to do." One of the things I admire, Deputy Director Burks is a servant, and her team serves. You know, Mike Davis and Daryl Graves, Bernice, they serve, and just to see that level of commitment, you know, Kirsten, you know, we serve in our community, and knowing that, and being in conversation with people. So I think, you know, have a village around you, have a support system around you. Uh, if you're feeling overwhelmed, be honest with yourself, step back, but have somebody that's your sounding board, that you can say, you know what, I'm overwhelmed. Because sometimes it gets overwhelming, you know, when people mess up and keep coming back and all of those things. Be real about it, but have, you know, check your motives. What's my intention? And then the biggest thing for me, who's getting the glory out of this work? Is it me or is it God? And if it's me, I need to check myself, um, repent from that, and regroup. But if the attention is going back to Him, you know, because transformation can only come from God, then we're on path, and we got to be honest with ourselves, because sometimes you can get caught up, you know. I remember early on in my early recovery, Dr. Dees would say to us, to God be the glory. She would always say that. We come in her office, people was hungry, she would feed us, she'd help us with our books, she worked with us, but I watched her serve. And so another thing of advice would be is to find somebody that you see doing this work, admire the integrity they bring to the work, and ask them to mentor you or walk alongside of you. And one of the things I have, and I feel blessed in my life, is I have a village of people from all walks of life that have done that for me. You know, Reba, you've been a shining light to me, by watching you do this work for this population that we serve, and do it diligently, you know. And I respect that. You know, Vanita Neves, the work that she's done, I've watched people do this work. I didn't get in here and try to take over, but I watched people that was already doing that work, that was already, you know, knocking down barriers and challenges that we face. You know, Annette in the tapestry work at ORW, Ronnie when she was at ORW, and the engagement with families that she was allowing, you know, just looking at the work that we do, that we have done, that we continue to do. To me, you got to see other people doing it. You got to admire what they're doing and ask them, hey, how did you get there? How do you do this? And not fight amongst ourselves, but really come together and have this collaboration, that we are breaking down the barriers of reentry and this mass incarceration, and we are helping to restore people's lives so that they can live a life sustainable, and rebuild their families, therefore their communities. And that's what it takes. It takes a collaboration. One agency is too small, one individual is too small, one church is too small, one educational institution is too small, one government is too small, but together we have the power to bring systematic change. And that's the only way we can do it.
Amen. And thank you for your for your comments about me. I would tell you, I struggle with ego in
Okay.
leadership. I do. And just, you know, interacting with people like you humbles me tremendously. And so I count you as a somebody leading me all the time, and just reminding me that got to check yourself.
Mhm,
I need that
mhm,
reminder constantly. So
mhm.
thank you for that. So I'm going to open it up now to our group. You can unmute, you can put something in the chat. I'll monitor the chat. I did see there's a lot of chats going on and some were directed to me, and I'm so busy listening to Patrice. I will respond off I guess off program to your chats for me. I just want to put that out there. But please, somebody, if you have a question for Patrice or an affirmation, absolutely. And then we'll just finish in a few minutes with, I have a few lightning round questions. Have you ever done those lightning rounds where it's just, I give you a question and it's like a one-word answer or something like that? So